As we heard in the BBC, the United Nations is launching the largest appeal in its history for Syria. They're seeking $5 billion in humanitarian aid for the country. They estimate that half the population is going to need some kind of help by the end of the year. The war is careening on with no end in sight. The rebels have recently lost Qusair. We thought we'd get an update on Syria now with Moyheddin Kassar. He is the president of the Syrian American Society. Moyheddin, nice to see you again.
Thank you for being here.
It seems like the loss of Qusair is really hurt the rebels. The insertion of Hezbollah into the fighting is creating a level of complication that just isn't going to quit. How do you see this playing out here?
Okay, on the media level, it really hurt because the regime put the Qasir's battle as the mother of all battles. But Qasir is not just one city out of many Syrian cities as a thing. It's importance of the Qasir is it's connecting the Mediterranean coast to the capital. Otherwise, there's nothing relevant in this city. The regime promised to take over the city in 2 days. It took him 45 days to take it. There is no revolution in the world can stand facing an army supported by major power like the Iranian and the Russian with foreign fighter on the ground. So it is normal that the Qasir are going to go back to the regime. Qasir going to be liberated again, but the regime doesn't have control on it. The regime has 50,000 soldiers, and he keeps moving them from one city to another. He is taking Qasir, but he lost something else somewhere in Syria. So I don't believe that the rebels need to hold to the ground. That's not a real approach. Military approach is not viable. There is no revolution can stand facing this army, and we did for 45 days. That's a score number of days supporting you without any support, any aerian support, any heavy artillery support, and it took the regime and its allied 45 days to take 100,000 people city.
Well, this hopscotch approach to the war in Syria, it seems like it'd go on for a long time. The Obama administration and John Kerry's come in as Secretary of State, and he really put his shoulder behind this June peace conference and is trying to get everyone to sit down and negotiate a way out of this. Why not have the rebels come and sit down and try to find a way to stop this fighting?
I am agreeing with you about why not. We are going to go. The opposition is going to go to Geneva too. And they are going to negotiate an exit of the situation here. But a political solution is in the hand of the regime. And if you take his rhetoric, the regime's rhetoric, and go to his action, you will tell that there is no political solution in his mind. The regime mind has only one tool. It's the hammer to hammer everything in sight. So we are going to go to the Geneva 2. The opposition is going to go to the Geneva 2, not myself. But I am not optimistic on the outcome of the Geneva 2 because to succeed with the outcome of Geneva 2 in making peace, you need to make the regime understand that there is no exit except peace. But he is not going to do that. That after Geneva 2, there's no violence, but he is not going to accept that.
Well, is the idea of another election, this is unacceptable to the rebel cause? I mean, if you've got support, why not go for another election, win, and exit?
The experience with the rebels about the election and the regime in power, that nothing is respected. We have election for the last 60 years, and all these election are just a facade. There is no real election here. If the regime is still in power, if the regime has control over the security power apparatus over the army, there is no election. There is no power in the world can guarantee a fair election if you have Assad and his gang controlling the army. That's period. So you're going to go to the election, but it's not going to succeed. You're going to go back to the case one, and we're going to start counting the bodies again and again from the beginning. The regime will not accept a peaceful exit. If the regime accepts a peaceful exit, I will promise you, if he accepted on Friday night, Saturday night, there will be 10 million marchers in the street of Syria. They are going to march. If people of Syria know that this guy's not going to use guns against them anymore, we're going to go again to the peaceful rallies, and he's not going to continue. He knows that, and he is not going to accept a peaceful exit.
You're listening to WorldView on WBEZ. I'm Jerome McDonnell, speaking with Moyheddin Kassar. He's president of the Syrian American Society, and we're talking about what's been going on in Syria. Some people come to the conclusion that the Obama administration doesn't want the rebels to win, that he's looked into them. He can't tell who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. There are too many religious militants inside the rebels, and that really he doesn't want to get into that. He wants some kind of negotiated deal, and that's what June is all about. Is that
this argument is good from yesterday only, but when the revolution started, the good guys and the bad guys are very distinct. We know who is good guys and we know who is bad guys. Obama administration dropped the ball on this issue. They sold very nice and fancy talk to the revolution, and the real support was really lacking here. And the Obama administration still have a chance to fix the problem, okay? But it need a political will behind it, and I'm not sure that Obama administration want to do that. The consensus they are making continuously, the red line that President Obama himself put it on the ground for Assad, and Assad keep stepping over these red lines, harm the United States administration leadership in the world and in the area. Today, after Qusair battle, the Syrian army newspaper talking about marching to Riyadh and Qatar. They have this audacity because they say we and the Iranian, the road to Qatar and Riyadh is open for us. So Obama administration need to take note of that. And unfortunately, I am sorry for President Obama to say it looks like Senator McCain got it the right way on this one, at least.
And Senator McCain wants a no-fly zone. He wants weaponry and all the rest.
Yes. A no-fly zone is something very important. If you are an officer in the army and you want to defect in Syria now, you will take your family and run away to a neighboring country. You can't stay in the country. You're going to be killed, and your family are going to be killed. If there is no fly zone, this officer is not going to be defect in this way. He is going to defect with his unit. He's going to stay on top of his job, and he will going to stay his position and refuse to execute the order of the leadership of Assad. Without no-fly zone, if he does that, this officer and his base going to be bombarded by long-range missiles and by the air forces. And thus, neither the officer can dare to do that, and nor his unit dare to refuse orders because they know the destruction is coming. Today, in the news, we hear that in Ming Airport, because the defender of the Ming Airport, the Syrian army, the regime's army, are to losing the battle. The regime force, Air Force, is bombarding everybody inside the airport as a punishment because they couldn't defend the airport continuously. So no-fly zone is something really relevant for the Syrian defense. And those who are friends with the regime for some reason, they keep, inflating the power of the regime. The regime has only 50 fighters in Operation Case. So it's not really a big deal. And I read a report saying that even we can take all the Syrian air defense without getting into the Mediterranean, we can bombard them from the Atlantic Ocean. So that's not a serious argument to justify the lack of action on our administration.
Do you have a good idea about where this thing is going with Hezbollah? They've come in, they've helped take Qusair, and there's a lot of people who think Israel isn't going to sit on the sidelines forever. There are Sunnis from Lebanon who were attacking Hezbollah. How do you read that?
I think we have, concerning the Israeli government, we have a very nice opportunity. If they succeeded, the Israeli government now, it's one in a lifetime can happen. If they succeed to align themselves with the will and the inspiration of the people of Syria. Now we have a common enemy called the Iranian power in the region. Every country in the region has the right to think of itself as major power, including the Iranian. But the Iranian, they want to build their power on the account of somebody else. And they believe that they win only when everybody else loses. And this is a vision that will cause organizations such Hezbollah, which is, I feel like it is so outrageous now, the position of Hezbollah. And if we allow it to develop further, we're going to look back to Al-Qaeda as Boy Scouts, So these guys are very out of any political context now. We are talking about Jeffrey Dahmer of the area,
So you would expect Israel to do something about it eventually?
I'm not expecting personally. That's my personal opinion. I hope so. So because these guys are not willing to negotiate with anything peacefully. These guys, they believe in the argument of power, and the only way that they understand something is to submit themselves to a power again. And Israel has the interest, and I don't know if they have the will to practice that. But there is some conspiracy theory saying whatever Hezbollah is doing in Syria, it's with the green light of Israel. And it has some merit, this conspiracy theory, because if Hezbollah did not believe that Israel can hit him from the back, he wouldn't have sent his soldier to Syria. But I think this is a conspiracy theory still saying.
And the idea of the conspiracy is that Israel doesn't want the rebels to win either.
Yes. That's really short-sighting from the Israeli government,
Well, we'll continue to talk about Syria in the coming months. And Moyheddin Kassar is president of the Syrian American Society. Thanks for joining us and discussing what's been going on in Syria.
Thank you for having me.